Sexuality Education. Now I am a homeless teen from the age of 14 to 21, on and off the streets. I am a kid from the streets, so I'm not shy, I'm not proud. I know everything from street level, like nothing's too hot or too heavy. I support sex education, and I'm a massive promoter of children's rights. This is sex education, and it's a right-based education, but I'm saying it's not right. So we'll just start now. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is, like I've said, the new curriculum. We're going to be discussing the legislation because that's really important what the government have attempted to do. We will be discussing relationship and sexuality education, what the government are telling us it is. Then we'll discuss comprehensive sexuality education because that's what this really is. That's the contracts the government signed. We will look then at some lesson content, but the lesson content we will show you is from the UK. This is a global sex education. We can show you content from around the world, which is awful, but I think it's important we all understand what's going on next door first. You know, it brings it home, doesn't it? We can access this stuff ourselves. Then sometimes we have a break, but if you want to go straight through, we will. I will play you then a short video because what you're going to see, you're going to be wondering how we got here, where's this stuff come from, you know, how do we get here basically. So I'll play you a little 3-minute video that somebody made for us about 18 months ago because that'll explain some things. Then we'll do a little bit of myth busting, we'll discuss the government's response and so far the people's response to what we've done up until this point. So first of all, the legislation. This is something that's not spoken about very often. There might even be teachers that's really not aware of what's of this. They'll only be looking at policies and lesson contents and things like that. But we've had new legislation, and the legislation we've had is called the Curriculum and Assessment Wales Act 2021. This is secondary legislation. Okay, so that's something you really need to remember now. Secondary legislation never overrides primary legislation. It's an amendment or an extension of, okay? So, but what this actually does, this secondary legislation, it mandates 4 subjects: English, Relationship and Sexuality Education, Religion, Values and Ethics, and Welsh. Those are the 4 mandatory subjects from age 3 to 16 with no parental opt-out. Part 77 of this Curriculum and Assessment Act. I don't know if any of you took part in the consultations regarding this new legislation, this new education, but this section here refers to it in the future then. So what it says here is, before issuing or revising the RSE code, the Welsh ministers must consult the persons they think appropriate. As you can see there in brackets, if any. Okay, so if any. It then goes on to say, and lay before the Senate of Cymru a draft of the proposed code, in brackets, or in the case of revisions, the proposed revised code. What that means is the codes that you will see, that the teachers will be giving you, the ones which were published in January, they can change overnight. So yes, we are taking those documents into court because that's all we've got. But that is not our main concern. Our fight started in July 2020. These weren't published in January 2022. So RSE. Why do we need RSE? Well, RSE is supposed to safeguard against sex abuse, inappropriate internet content, reproductive health and biology, meaningful relationships and being kind. I don't know why we need legislation for our children to be taught about being kind. Why do we lose our right and say over that? That's just something that's human beings we learn in general anyway. Reproductive health and biology. There's a nurse there. It's a specialist field. It's a specialist complex field. Health, reproductive health, STIs, pregnancies, all these things are complex. Are we expecting a teacher to take that on? Then we've got the police. Sexual abuse and inappropriate internet content. The police gather evidence. The police cannot safeguard against sex abuse. Do you know why? Because again, you need a specialist team. The sexual crimes team know about this subject. The normal police will just gather the evidence. So again, I'm asking you, are the teachers the sexual crimes team? No, they are not. And then we have the government. Are the schools going to take on the government's orders? No. Are the schools going to enforce what the government is telling them to do? Because the legislation says yes. But these are the reasons they say we need RSE, which, yeah, you could say these are issues we do need to address and discuss. But should they be in a school? Should they be the responsibility of somebody with a degree in music and a level 2 safeguarding? These are specialist, complex fields. So here we are. This is the curriculum for Wales Relationship and Sexuality Education code that I just spoke about. This was published January 2022. There's two documents. There's the guidance and the code. This is what the legislation refers to as the code, and this is what the ministers will discuss with or without your permission. They can change at any time. But this is what they've delivered now after 18 months of pushback from us. Prior to that document, we had this document here, the Relationship and Sexuality Education in Schools, February 2019. This is important. This is where I got involved. I've been aware of comprehensive sexuality education since 2013. I'm a criminologist. I've been in the criminal justice system 23 years, institutional sex abuse, and I've also got 15 years education policy because of my child with additional needs. So when I saw an article online January 2020 to say we've lost our parental opt-out and the children are having sex education from age 3, my heart sank. Knowing what I'm looking for, I went online. Page 4 of this document said to refer to UNESCO. UNESCO is a global sex education. UNESCO is comprehensive sexuality education. Comprehensive sexuality education is like nothing we've seen before. It comes from America. It's a rights-based approach. It looks good. A lot of it reads good. Children's rights, bodily rights, reproductive rights, sexual and reproductive rights. That's something our government don't want you to know about, is the sexual and reproductive rights of a child. You will find this document on the Hub website. We have been told this education is a Welsh education written by Welsh practitioners for the children of Wales. This document here was done on 87 studies, a third in third world countries and a 40 in the slums of America. Is that devolved government's documentation? No, it is not. The government have denied that this is global, but they have referenced it as co-constructed. But this education, this rights-based approach, this comprehensive sexuality education has been evaluated at 87% failure, but it's been co-constructed. So I don't know how much co-construction of 87% failure we expected to take on here, but that's basically what the government is allowing or promoting them. So like I said, when I first found out about this, it didn't take me long to find what was going on because I knew what I was looking for. A little bit more research, we found this document here, the Sexuality Education in Europe and Central Asia. Everything I show you is on our website, so please don't believe a word I say, okay? You check everything I say. You check and you test everything just as you should with the government. So this document here, Sexuality Education in Europe and Central Asia, is an overview of 25 countries. Page 8 tells us that we were the last in Europe to accept this education. So all 4 select committees of the UK signed up to comprehensive sexuality education on the 1st of March 2017. They all did. Page 174 of this document is the studies in England. There's a star by England, and in the corner it says, these studies were done in England, but they apply to the whole of the UK. So what this document also tells us is the framework the government's adopted. It tells us if the Department of Health, the Department of Education, children's ministers, and whoever else was around that table, but those were the three main key players. What it tells us is they accept this framework here. Set standards for sexuality education in Europe. This is a policy framework. This is what's been going around in Europe for a long time. This was the document I first came across in 2013 because I didn't believe what I was seeing actually. This document here, I urge you all to read this because of the Department of Health, the Department of Education. They all accepted this, okay? And it's really easy to read. You get to page 38, there's a matrix, and what we've got here, we've got the age of the child in the corner, information fed into a child, the skills the child will acquire, and the attitudes the child develops from that. We are told that we are getting this wrong. This is not sex education, this is sexuality education. Let's read the sexuality section there of this framework these departments accepted in all 4 UK governments. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation. The fact that enjoyment and physical closeness is a normal part of everyone's life. Tenderness and physical closeness and expression of love and affection. Gain an awareness of gender identity. Talk about unpleasurable feelings in one's own body. Express own needs and wishes and boundaries. For example, in the context of playing doctor. So that is age 0 to 4. Age 0 to 4. This is what they looked at. Now when I first seen this document, I couldn't get my head around it. It's the World Health Organization, and I just thought somebody made a mistake and I had to try and find the answers for it. But we'll go on to that in a second. We'll continue reading on. Here we got age 4 to 6, again, enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, early childhood masturbation, the meaning of it, an expression of sexuality, for example, expressing feelings of love, appropriate sexual language, sexual feelings, closeness, enjoyment, excitement is all part of human feelings. Talk about sexual matters, consolidate their gender identity, and use sexual language in a non-offensive way. Age 4 to 6. I don't write this stuff. I'm just reading it to you. These are what the government have accepted as framework for our sex education. 6 to 9, what you'll find is it's a part-time throughout these global documents. By the time they get to age 9, that's when they are discussing sexual intercourse. So again, love, being in love, tenderness, sex in the media, enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, appropriate sexual language, use sexual language in a non-offensive way, deal with sex in the media, an understanding of acceptable sex, mutually consensual, voluntary, equal, age-appropriate, context-appropriate and self-respected. An awareness that sex is depicted in the media in different ways. Age 6 to 9. They signed these, they adopted this framework. I call this the BMW. And what I say to people is, they've ordered a BMW. They're not going to drive an Astra into the classroom when they've already signed up for the BMW. Here we are, age 9 to 12. First sexual experience, gender orientation, sexual behaviour in young people, love, being in love, pleasure, masturbation, orgasm, differences between gender identity and biological sex, communicate and understand different sexual feelings and talk about sexuality in an appropriate way, make a conscious decision to have sexual experiences or not, refuse unwanted sexual experiences, acceptance, respect and understanding of diversity in sexuality and sexual orientation. Sex should be mutually consensual, voluntary, equal, age-appropriate, context-appropriate, self-respecting. Acceptance of different expressions of sexuality, kissing, touching, caressing, etc.
9 to 12.
This is 9 to 12. And this is why I encourage people to read this document, because you don't need a trained eye. I have only read you one section of the matrix, and it's just the sexuality section. Some of these sections are like 2 pages each for each year group. So that's just one thing I've read to you, because we do get attacked saying this is about sexuality and not sex. And, you know, it's not correct, guys. So here we are now. This is some lesson content that we've had from around the UK. When we speak about this, the early childhood masturbation, people say, how can they teach that in school? They're not going to teach that to 4-year-olds. Well, this is from the United Nations. It's the All About Me package. This was in 241 schools in England. And this is what they've done here. They've changed the terminology from masturbation to self-stimulation. That's what you will see in the UNESCO documents. When you Google this, they will have you believe it came from Warwickshire Council. But if you contact us, we can give you a paper where this was reviewed. It comes from Comprehensive Sexuality Education. We can give that to you via email. We're holding it back for court. That's why we're not on the website. But I want to read this to you because this is really important. There are also rules about touching yourself too. Now, lots of people like to tickle or stroke themselves. It might feel nice. They might play with their hair, stroke their skin, or they may even touch their private parts. This is really very normal. However, some people may get cross or say that it is dirty, especially when you touch your own privates. This is strange, this is really very normal. However, it is not polite to do it when other people are about. It is something we should only do when we are alone, perhaps in the bath or shower or in bed. A bit like picking your nose. It is certainly not polite to do it in the class when everyone is watching. Now, we have 4 types of children in the class. Well, 5 really, because a nurse pointed something out to me last night, which I have been mentioning. So let's say we've got 5 types of children in that class. We've got children who touch themselves. We've got children that simply do not. We've got children that's doing it because they've been neglected and soothing. We've got children with medical conditions. And we've also got children that's being sexually abused. So what we need to do, this is something we call a non-verbal disclosure for sexual abuse. We're looking at how children behave, how they act, so we can investigate that. So a lot of people see this as quite sexual. We get some people saying kids do it, they always got their hands in their trousers. But this is a barrier to non-verbal disclosure. This is just told all our children. It's drawn all their attention to their genitals, it tickles, it feels nice, they can all do it. It's told them not to do it in the class when everyone's watching. But we're supposed to be watching in the class. We've just programmed an entire generation from the first year in school away from what we call a non-verbal disclosure. How is that safeguarded? How have any teachers picked up on it? Because it's a complex specialist field. Teachers don't know about barriers to disclosure, models of offending, perpetrators of abuse. When you're protecting your car from a car thief, you think like a car thief. It's the same when you're protecting your house from burglary, you think like a burglar. To protect the child from sexual abuse, you need to be able to think like a perpetrator.
Yes, sorry, I've just got to say, I considering on Facebook that there have been how many teachers found to be paedophiles in high schools already? How does this happen?
Well, I'll come on to that at the end if you like. I'll discuss that with you because I've just done a report. As I said, institutional abuse is my field. So that is school sex abuse, that is religious institutions, sports, clubs and things like that. So my major concern is always going to come from there. So for the last 2 years, the teachers are looking at me as if I'm attacking them. But I'm not attacking every single teacher. I know there are predators within the system, but I'll discuss that with you in the end. But yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Common sense. So a lot of what you're going to see from here on in now is from the Scottish curriculum. 100 lesson plans are published online. Why are we talking Scotland? Well, like I said, they've signed the same contract. But to go a step further, Professor Donaldson, who wrote the Curriculum of Excellence, has written the curriculum for Wales. Kirsty Williams used to reference the Scottish curriculum And even though it's heavily criticised, she is on record in the Senate speaking, saying it hasn't been delivered right. So that's why we've got all these problems in Scotland 4 years later, because it hasn't been delivered right. So here we have from age 3 to 5, identify these body parts. Now, you know, it's the usual arms, bottom, ears, everything else. Penis, scrotum, testicles and vulva. Now, if you want to use correct terminology for your children, that's your choice. That's your private choice. No way on this planet does correct terminology safeguard your children. Okay? If a teacher doesn't understand when a child comes and says, my uncle licked my cookie, if a teacher hasn't got time to extend on that conversation, the problem is with the teacher, not the child. Okay? It's lack of training with the teacher. By discussing genitalia with young children, that is how perpetrators engage with them. They don't go straight in. There's a conversation. They see these conversations and the way of engaging in conversation as consent. That's how they see it. Okay? Your child, if your child shrieks to the sight of adult genitalia, that's called victim resistance, and that is far more powerful than giving everyone in the country the password to your children's genitalia. It is not right. It does not safeguard. And I will go up against anyone in the world on this, okay? If you want to use this, that's your choice. You do not, it's not, you don't blanket teach things. Privates are private. Nobody touches your child. Nobody discusses genitalia with a child. It is actually non-contact sex abuse as well. So this again, age 3 to 5 in Scotland. One way that a woman and man love each other and they have sex. This is a special thing that grown-ups can do. When they have sex, the man's penis goes inside the woman's vagina, sperm goes out and goes in to meet the egg inside the woman's body. We've had an autistic child come home from school last week, I think, 9 years old. He got into bed with his mother, tried humping her leg, he wanted to put sperm inside her so she could have a baby. But this is all age appropriate. So this is age 5 to 8. Genitals are private. This is showing the genitals. This is normal. You know, this is normal. But that is not a 5 to 8 year old in those pictures. Okay, that's adult genitalia. Desensitizing your children again. Okay, there's no need of it. There is absolutely no need of it. You decide what and when, how and when they are ready, or if they need help, or if they need support. And it's our job then as a community to come together and support you. This does not get thrown in your children's face. Look at that there. Like I said, age 5 to 8. Age 9 to 12 as well. So from 3 to 5, they tell them what a man does to make a woman pregnant. But you're now age 9 to 12, they actually is saying how you do it. So if a man and a woman are having sex, they both want to do it. A man can put his penis inside a woman's vagina, gently move his penis in and out. This should feel nice for both people. It then goes on to say, when people have sex, they might have an orgasm. For a woman, an orgasm is a pleasure feeling in her body. For a man, if he has an orgasm called ejaculation, white liquid called semen will come out of his hard penis. He will enjoy this feeling. And then we've got the image of the male and female in bed together. We've got the image of the two males in bed together.
And this is age 9, right?
This is age 9. Go back and double check it. Yeah, age 9 to 12. So this is age 9 to 12 as well. As we go into, like I said, they will start talking about sexual intercourse from age 9 onwards. And what you'll see is they're not just discussing sex, they're discussing how to do sex, what's the most pleasurable way, how much percent do this, how much percent do that. We're still on the Scottish curriculum here. So as you can see, it talks about real sex, oral sex, anal sex, tell them. Oral sex is when a man or woman kisses or licks the private parts of the other person's body, such as their penis or vagina. Same then for anal sex, pretty much instructions. What's a 9-year-old going to think when they're introduced to that? It's time. It's time. You might just pass on the car keys. Here we are, again, anal sex. Anal sex is a 44% popularity. Anal sex is also promoted as a way of preventing pregnancy.
So that's encouraging them to use it as safe sex.
Yeah, well, it's encouraging to use as safe sex, but there's no dangers as in anal cancers, collapsing of the anal cavity. There is no consequence. Even vaginal sex, they are telling females you're higher risk of having STIs, but they're not saying why. They're not saying it's because you have a period once a month, which means your immune system is low, and they are not discouraging children from having, well, young girls from having sex before their cervix has matured. So we've got a fantastic presentation done by Dr. Miriam Grossman in America. She did it for us here in Wales. She's taken out current sex education and put it into presentation. And if I was a parent of a girl, I would really appreciate that, because she shows you a picture of the immature cervix and the mature cervix. You know, so this is a way of preventing these diseases later in life. There's no preventative measures in these documents at all. And again, we're asking teachers to deliver what they're reading. You know, so I did not know that information about females. I've got 2 boys. At one time, one of my boys' testicles are twisted. I didn't know you got 46 hours to save that. Not 48, 46. These are things that they should be learning and knowing about, you know. These slides now, these relate to females. Again, the videos, they're all on YouTube, because the lesson plans, they're not all like this all the way through. You know, you've got like decent stuff there. Then you've got a link at the bottom for the YouTube video. So it could actually be a case of the teacher puts a YouTube video on, 2 minutes in, it all kicks off, you know. So, and these have been commissioned by the NSPCC as well. So what you've got here is 40% of women like anal, that's a banana in Nutella. 96% of the Scottish population thought that was inappropriate. The Scottish Sun would not publish it. 30% of females swallow. The chicken there, that's 40% of females like light bondage. At the bottom here, the 2 hot dogs, that is the threesome. And then here on your left, this is the dice game. Now this was commissioned by the UK government. You can buy yourself one if you want from Aunt Summers, but you won't have the government logo on it. We've got 1 dice with the body parts, and the other dice has actions, so touch and things like that. The instructions in there, it tells the teacher to hold their nerve. So when you've got to tell a teacher to hold their nerve, delivering a lesson, that's cause for concern.
Sorry, where do they get that the statistics from then? What was that
I have
survey?
absolutely no idea, but I do know the NSPCC was involved in the commission of these as well. But what they do is they are taking people off the internet. They are putting these videos together. When you look into that person's other videos, then they're really not. They're not like childlike people, you know. They're quite rude, really. Like I said, I'm not a prude, but you know, I'm far from a prude. I came from the streets. But this stuff is, well, this is how I know the damage it does to kids. I shed doorways with these kids. You know, I was a youth offender with these children. I know the damage this does, and this is where my passion comes from, you know. So all this is in aid of inclusivity. All in aid of inclusivity. 4% of the population, we've got to have this law against the parents, we've got to have this graphic list and content, this global sex education to be inclusive. Unless you're a parent, of course, then you can't have a say at all. Religion, they don't even care about your religion, your religious beliefs don't come into it. Disability gets no mention. What should also be on this slide is, there is also no mention of boy, girl, man, woman, male and female throughout these documents. 14,000 words between these 2 documents, and they don't even mention biological sex. But they reckon they need this to teach about misogyny and things like that. So how can you teach about misogyny if you're not going to mention the woman? You know? But these people have plenty to say on it. They have lots to say over our children's education. And the truth is this. 9 times out of 10, their only qualification is their sexuality. That is why they get these jobs. So I would like you to look up diversity role models. They did the ASDA Home Education Sex Pack, the school, Safe Schools Alliance UK. Everybody was up in arms. It resembles something like PI policies. Anyone aware of PI? Pedophile Information Exchange. That was a political party of the 80s, and their policies resemble that. Again, their only qualifications are sexuality. Do a bit of Google search on it. Something's come up again today on social media about them. I didn't have time to look into it. Then we got mermaids saying they just want to change every child's gender in the country. They want the part of your child's sexual and reproductive rights as well. I mean, the state can administer medication to your child without consent. These have a lot of say in our schools. They're heavily funded by our government and our local authorities. Have we got Stonewall? I don't know how much you've heard about Stonewall, but a lot has been kicking off in England, because like I said, they're about 4 years ahead of us on this education. Scotland is well in it. They have, there's lots going on. There's court cases against government agencies now pulled away from them. Unions have pulled away from them. But here in Wales, we got Mark Drakeford, who likes to make out we're at war with England. So whatever England does, we've got to do the opposite. He's got his foot on the gas. They get funding from all 22 local authorities, and they also get funding from the government. Undisclosed figure. They will not give us that information because it's not in the public interest, apparently.
Public money.
Yeah. Then we have this man here. Does anyone know who this man is?
Peter Thatcher.
Yeah. This man has no children. Again, his only qualification is sexuality.
Why has he got no children? Because he can't face the fact that this is coming.
No, listen now. He campaigned for us to lose our parental opt-out. He thinks sex with 9-year-old boys can be harmless. His interviews, there's loads of interviews of him saying this. He thinks children should be taught about masturbation. Again, he gets airtime. He's on with Philip and Holly. He's on with Piers Morgan. He was on the other day. There's a transgender head teacher, and they were talking about the children changing gender in school. And he believes parents don't have a right to know. This transgender teacher, Debbie Hayton, thinks parents should know. You know, she's on our side. She's a transgender teacher on our side. And there we have Peter Thatcher, who is the ambassador for Educate and Celebrate in Ireland, best friends with the Children's Commissioner, and he's the one campaigning to remove our parental opt-out. The man that thinks sex with 9-year-old boys is okay. This man's getting airtime. The only time he should be getting is psychological evaluation time. This is not normal, even if he genuinely thinks it is. It is not. Okay, we can't have people like that making decisions over our children.
Here.
And here we have some books to look out for. I'm not, usually my colleague Lucia will talk about the books. I'm not that clued up on these books. I look at the ones from America, which are really, really graphic. But one brand to look out for is the Pop and Ollie series. They make it popular, like a family down the street or something, and it's really fashionable to become transgender. There's they got the books then, King and King. So your best friend is your gay friend. This is straight away from nursery. Now, when my son was in school, he's got ADHD. So we had the 6-year-olds were on the carpet, and they read a book to the children. All dogs got ADHD. Those children from the age of 6 to 16 could understood my son, right, from that one book, from that one reading. But these children are having this put in their face day in, day out, right? So it's very, very confusing for them. We had 2 6-year-olds walking through the street the other day. An older lady said to them, "Oh, you were really good friends looking out for each other." They said, "We are lesbians," Miss said. Right, I have spoken to you briefly about the children's sexual and reproductive rights. The state can administer medication to a child without your consent. This is called the Trans Toolkit. This has been used widely in the UK. This is the one that was published in 2019. Section 7.3 is confidentiality and information sharing. All people, including pupils and students, have a right to privacy. That means they keep information from you. They can provide your child with a new name and a new uniform. No, that'll never happen. Will it? So this is even before this legislation comes into place. This was a school in the Rhondda, on 23rd of August 2021. It took 2 weeks for the parents to find out what was happening to their child.
That's disgusting. This should be the first port of call.
Yeah, exactly. This is it. These are all complex fields, okay? They're all complex fields. Everybody needs to be supported. I'm an additional needs mother. I understand that more than anyone. We celebrate individuality. We don't blanket teach nothing. We don't blanket teach maths, right? We've got 3 separate groups in the class. Lower, medium, higher. They're never the same level for everything. Anyway, so this, I just don't know what they're playing at here. So there in the far left corner we have the Scottish drag queen who went into the schools. Her name is Flo Job.
What
There-
job?
Flo
Flow
Job.
job. Right.
Flo Job.
Nice.
Her social media is absolutely disgusting. There was riots about this, mind. And to be fair, she has offered to give us an interview, so that's going to be interesting. This fine specimen here on the right, this is Ada HD. We call her Ada H hard-on because she's always very, well, she's either very well blessed or she's pleased to see the children. As you can see there, in every outfit she wears, she's standing over the 4-year-olds with her thing pulled up there, and her videos, her laughing, her singing, her dancing. She's, you know, you can see her whole body. There's just no need of it. But that's Ada HD, who is now again, she started writing books as well.
So, how is Drag Story Hour supposed to educate our children?
Well, what we've been told is it's no different to Widow Twanky.
Right.
Yeah, Richard, it's helpful you'll know that.
Now, I have got a friend who is a drag artist and he's also a children's entertainer. Gazzy Bears mascots by day and he's whatever his name is in the night. So he'll entertain the children in the day and then he'll go and entertain you in the night. He would never, ever, ever cross the two. You know, it's a bit different to the Two Ugly Sisters to this. This is adult entertainment. There's no two ways about that. No.
So why do children's audience then?
Exactly why they need children's audience. They believe it's inclusive, but when you look into these individuals as well, they haven't got a very good background. In the middle here, we got Natalie. Natalie is American. This particular video, see the children around her there? She's doing a mock interview, and the guy in the mock interview says, "Hey, Natalie, what do you think of the kids who look up to you?" And she says there, "The kids that look up to me can suck my dick." Then the screen comes on and there's feces being dropped onto a man's face. So these are the people entertaining your children without your knowledge. And there's absolutely nothing you can say about it because you'll be breaching their right to an education and then you'll be breaching their sexual and reproductive rights. And this is just something else we found, which I thought I'd put in there, which I hadn't come across until I'd done this presentation. 6-year-olds forced to write gay love letters to teach accepting diversity. You don't force children to do anything. You don't force it. We keep getting told time and time again that we need this education because most children got 2 mums and most children got 2 dads. No, they haven't. How we address these issues is simple. We get the children to draw their family. Then we talk about the family. Because what you'll find is some of the kids in our class won't even draw their parents. They might draw their cat or their dog or their bird because family means something different to us all. So by showing children this is what your family should look like, or this is how it should look like, or this is what it should look like, no, we don't need it. We don't need this every single day, day in, day out. Not unless we're going to explain to children how. The only thing that's different about our relationships is the way we have sex. So unless you're going to go into those kind of details, why are we even going there? It gets worse.
Really?
Have any of you heard of the school sex survey?
Yes.
Yeah, some have, some haven't. Okay, so this has come from Scotland. Yeah, well, so this has come from Scotland now, and it's gotten quite big. There was over 60 questions on it, I think. And first of all, we found out it got up to 9-year-olds, and then as it gets more found out, oh, it wasn't 9-year-olds, it was 11-year-olds. It wasn't 11-year-olds, it was 13-year-olds. Oh, it was the 15-year-olds. As it goes, you know. But basically, there's been absolute riots over this. This has been commissioned by the Scottish Government under the title of Health and Wellbeing. Have you had vaginal or anal sex, penetrative sex more than once? How old were you when you had sex for the first time, 13 years or younger? That's statutory rape. That is statutory rape. 14 years old, 15 years old, 16 years old or older. That is underage sex. That is grooming, sexual exploitation. These children need to be protected and looked after. And like I said, I'm not proud. I'm far from proud. There's nothing too hot or too heavy for me. But this is wrong. This is massively wrong. This is our government. When you first had sex, would you personally say you wanted it to happen earlier, you wanted it to happen at the time, you would rather have had it later, you did not ask yourself that, prefer not to say? What business is it of the government's?
Yeah.
What business is it of theirs anyway?
Because they can form better policies if they're better informed.
Oh yeah, John, yeah, we know that.
Design better grooming
Yeah, well, exactly. They can finish a gap in the reach. Yeah.
Well, the reason why I brought this sex survey into it is because what you'll see in the RSE documents and the RSE code, you'll see in inverted commas lots of times something called health and well-being. This is the health and well-being. I don't know how many of you are aware that last July the government surveyed our children under the title of health and well-being. Did anyone know about that? Well, apparently you give permission. So yeah, so this survey went out under the title of health and well-being last July. As far as I'm aware, there was only one sexual question on it. But like I'm telling you, we're 4 years behind Scotland, so expect it to get a bit hard and heavy there. But I wanted to bring that in, so like I say, the terminology, health and well-being, it all sounds good. All about me, it all sounds good. Empowering them with consent, age appropriate, safeguarding, it all sounds amazing. When you break it down, there's nothing behind it.
They turn it into a Sandra constantly being victims, or
They've got to have a victim and a demon, see? Everything's got to have a victim and a demon.
it's fine. That's what it is.
So I don't know if you want to have a break or if you want me to go straight into the second half. It's up to you. Do you want to have 5-10 minutes or do you want me to go straight in? Straight in? Yeah?
Straight in, yeah.
Okay, you have to bear with me then because this is a bit technical. It is. So like I said, we had a guy, he had seen me going absolutely berserk on social media. It was two political parties playing ping pong with our children, and I had flipped my lid. Because in the beginning I couldn't speak like this, I was so hot-headed, I couldn't get my words out, you know, I was really irate over there. And this guy had seen the video of me and he was like, what's this woman all about? And he went and added up. And then within like a week or two, he's phoning me, do you know this, do you know that, do you know this? Well, obviously I did know it all, but I couldn't tell people, you've got to break them in slowly, you know. This is what we keep getting as well. They wouldn't do that, they would never do that, how can they say that? There is something behind it, it all comes from somewhere, and I think this video is the best way of explaining that. It kind of sums everything up for us, and hopefully this will play on it now. Oh, wait there. Sound recording.
Here to tell you about one of the most bizarre ideas that has ever come out of the field of sexuality education. It all started back in the 1950s with this crazy scientist guy called Alfred Kinsey. Kinsey did a whole pile of research with a bunch of pedophiles and rapists and called it the science of sexuality. This pervert actually beat pedophiles for information on how they were abusing kids and put it all in a book, sexual behavior in the human male. So this guy travels the world and suckers all you adults into believing his story that this is serious science. And all along it's all based on abusing kids. He and his friends believe that babies have sexual rights from birth. I mean, what sort of person believes a baby has sexual rights? The type of person that believes that sex with kids is okay. And Kinsey believed that too. So Kinsey gets a wad of cash from the Rockefeller Foundation and Hugh Hefner of Playboy magazine, and he and his buddies set up the Kinsey Institute. Meanwhile, his friend, a guy called Barbara Pomeroy, sets up another crazy group called the Sexual Information and Education Council of the United States, SECUS. So the next thing these guys do, they sucker the United Nations into believing this crap. And what do you know? The next thing that happens, SECUS write an education program for the United Nations. And every government in the world signs up to it. You couldn't make this garbage up if you tried. So now, school kids all over the world are taught from 3 years old about stuff like masturbation and all kinds of pornography, most of which I didn't even know existed. The whole world has been suckered into believing this crap, all except for one little country in the UK. It's called Wales. It's one of the only ones left. But the government there is just as gullible as the rest of them, and they want to bring this global program into their schools this year. I mean, teaching kids about all types of pornography. Don't they know that pornography can be addictive for kids? And it fuels human trafficking? The scary part is that parents won't have a say in what their kids are taught. Why? Because the United Nations calls the shots. And they believe, because Kinsey and his buddies believe, that kids have sexual rights from birth, and those rights trump the rights of the parents. So no offense to you Welsh, but you need to stop being cheap. You need to ask your government representatives what they're doing about protecting your kids from this Kinsey garbage. Because if this law is passed by the Welsh government later this year, you no longer have a choice. You no longer have a say. It's time to stand up and stop the sexualization of Welsh kids, because Wales deserves better.
Why haven't we heard about it? That's what angers me.
Well, I wish I could answer that, Louise, to be honest with you. I really wish I could answer that. I've kicked myself a few times thinking, because I've been in education policy for 15 years with my son. How didn't I know about it sooner? Why didn't I know about it sooner? But we can't ask ourselves that, because if we'd known about it sooner, they wouldn't have referenced it in the draft. We wouldn't have found the evidence online. We wouldn't have found the other document. And then in a few years' time, well, I'm not going to find out about it till I got grandkids. So I'm not going to see the damage of that until my children's children come through the system. So this is an agenda, you know, as you've seen there, it goes back to the 1950s. People say that was back then, this is now, things are different now. But that is the raw data from terms such as sexual from birth, early childhood masturbation. That's where this actually comes from. SECUS actually write the sex education for UNESCO. If you go to the Hub website now, you go onto the UNESCO document, just on the inside of the cover, it tells you who it's partnered with, who writes for them. It's got it all there, you know, their words, not ours. And that's why I keep telling people, you need to look at this yourself. So this did start with just one small group of people, heavily funded, yes, heavily funded indeed, and it's still very relevant for today. Why? Like I said, SECUS were set up on the back of the Kinsey Institute, but the Kinsey Institute are direct chief advisors to UNESCO, who are co-constructing our education, who will be inspecting our schools, by the way, okay? Because this is no longer a standalone subject. This is in every single subject across the curriculum. Maths, history, science, geography, However they're going to get it in there, they will. Okay, like I said, there's 100 lesson plans on the Scottish website, rshp.gov. Have a look on there, or go to the Scottish Family Party where they've brought out all the bad things and put it into one document. We've also got the Kinsey Reporter app, you know, so if this was from the 1950s and it wasn't relevant today, why have they got an app? Well, they are still collecting this data, that's why. I've downloaded the app, I've looked for myself. You can put in information about children, and it also, yeah, Matthew?
Tell them about table 34.
Oh, wait, no worries.
Yeah.
So, and you can put information in about the children as well. The only warning on there does say children are not supposed to use this app, but if they're found to be, they will delete that data. They've also got child porn on there as a choice of, you know, how they get gratification. It's not called child porn, it's called child modelling. So if you want to find out a little bit more about this, there are 2 ways of doing that. The first thing you should do is go onto YouTube, type in Secret Histories, Kinsey's Paedophiles. There is a documentary there done by Channel 4. Don't even take my word for it. Listen to them, they'll tell you themselves, okay?
The thing is, the majority of this has already blatantly been in our faces the whole time.
Yeah, it has. And this is it. So we've got, well, like the first book he published was The Sexual Behaviour of the Human Male. Chapter 5 is all about babies and children. The youngest child abused in there was 4 months old. The sexual behaviour of the human female, the youngest child in that book was 2 months old. So this is, and like if you watch that documentary, there is a 3-hour documentary, but this 1-hour documentary, you've got his associates laughing when they mention the word paedophile. There's a woman on there and she's saying what her father did. He had a stopwatch, how he collected this data for Kinsey. The Kinsey Institute said, tell her it's safe. They've now got this data in a position where if the door went through, if they break through the door, it'll be gone in a click of a button. They say that in the documentary as well. These are their words, not mine. Okay? Don't believe anything I'm saying. This is your children. You don't believe anyone. You get out there and you look.
They seriously think that this is going to construct healthy family relationships.
Exactly. And it's the same thing as well with the gender theory. You know, we are a mixed group. We are non-religious, but we are a platform that welcome all religions. We are a mixed group of sexualities. We've got parents with transgender children as well, you know, going through this whole thing. But the truth of the matter is this. Again, that science is flawed as well. The gender theory, the transgender theory, came from a man called John Money. It's based on 2 twin boys, Bruce and David, no, not Bruce, Bruno, what's his name, Half, she's gone. His name is B and David Reimer. So these were 2 twin boys. They had a circumcision when they were 7 months old. David's went horribly wrong. So he was, his penis was mutilated and they didn't know what to do. They found John Money, and John Money believed that gender was a social construct, that it was nurture, not nature. They forced, and you, again, don't take my word for it, you go and watch David Reimer's interviews, okay? His words, not mine. The 2 boys kept visiting John Money. He would make them perform sex acts on each other, with David playing the part of the female. David didn't like female toys, he didn't like his dresses, he kept trying to pull them off and all sorts. Between the age of 10 and 14, things got more difficult for him. By the time he was 14, he admitted that he was a boy. That's when he started living his life as a male. He did get married, but his life was destroyed. By that time, the research had been published, which is being referenced today. We've got a professor in Cardiff Uni referencing this stuff back. It's based on child abuse. It's all based on child abuse. And we are led to believe that we need to support this because children will take their lives if we do not. These 2 boys did take their life. Well, his brother, it was an overdose as well. And a few years later, David Reimer took his life. But not before he came out and told the world the truth. He came out on Oprah Winfrey and he told the world the truth. His mother told the world the truth. That research is still in circulation, and here we are today with us. So we're going to do a little bit of myth busting now, because I think this is really important, because we get told stuff about this education all the time, and it's simply not true. So it's safeguards. Correct terminology for body parts, safeguards. So let's look at safeguarding in general. It simply doesn't safeguard, does it?
No.
This does not safeguard. My work is based on institutions. Where there are children, there are predators. If you look at a recent report published by the Independent Inquiry into Child Sex Abuse, IICSA, sex abuse in schools, their words, is an open secret, with 43% of children who's been abused aware of it happening to other children. I did a study, I've been watching the data from the Education Workforce Council Wales. They do fitness to practice panels, they publish those panels on the website, they're there for 6 months before being deleted. Since September 2020, I've been watching it, a third are sexually motivated. The people dealing with these panels are cherry-picked by Welsh Government. We don't have a police officer, we don't have a social worker, we don't have a criminologist. There is grooming behaviours within these documents, which these people dealing with it don't know about. But if they were stood in a police station, it would be criminalised. So we are failing these children. What's happening here is, these people are getting no more than a 2-year suspension. Look this up yourself. There are names there, there are schools there, all the details are there, but each case is only there for 6 months. We've also done freedom of information requests to the police forces in Wales. We want to know sex assaults in schools between September 2016 and July 2019. I think we had one police force, which one, I am bothering me. North Wales was 114 sexual assaults, 70 of those were perpetrated by children. We had almost 50 perpetrated by adults. South Wales was in excess of 527 sexual assaults in school grounds. 192 was perpetrated by children, the rest were perpetrated by adults. Gwynedd Police Force would not give us those numbers because they said it was too much trouble. And the other police force I can't think about now, there was 74 sexual assaults and rapes in 3 school years on our school grounds. Well, the thing is, this is underreported. So there was, I had a phone call one day. We'd come up to North Wales to try and get some support up here. And I put posters outside the school where I live, and the head teacher, who I always clashed with, he's not my children's head teacher, but I do a lot of work with additional needs, so I do PowerPoint presentations on children for parents, for the additional needs teachers to know about the child. So me and this particular head teacher, we don't get along anyway, and he phoned up, and he didn't expect me to be on the other end of the phone. This teacher admitted everything. He admitted knowing where these documents come from. He admitted they were based on child abuse, but some documents are excellent. He also went on and he admitted he purposely kept this from the parents. But as we were having this discussion, I was getting really wound up. So my colleague who was there at the time, I said, film it. And she filmed it, and it was live on Facebook. Well, people where I live and in my locality, they had heard that teacher's voice. My phone was red hot. We found out then that sex abuse in that school had been taking place. One parent who had phoned me was a hell of a mess. Her 2 twin boys had been assaulted in school, but she didn't know about it because it happened a year before, and the first she heard about it when social services knocked at her door because a teacher had caught him doing it to another child. And when the social services came out, they sat the boys down and they said, "Do you like Mr. So-and-so?" "Yes." "Why, he does this, he does that, he does that." "Okay, fine, case closed. That guy's gone to another school." Those children spoke about classic grooming. "Yes, he's nice, he does this, he does that, he does that." Classic signs of grooming. Why didn't the social worker pick it up? Well, if we look at another report published by the Welsh Government of Barnados, I think that's September 2020 as well, or even September 2021, they're not allowed to ask for disclosure. Social workers in Wales do not know what to do with disclosure. They're not allowed to ask about a disclosure. They're not even allowed to talk about a disclosure. That's how social services in Wales.
But they can take an innocent parent through the mill.
So again, let's go back to this safeguards. Teachers do level 2 safeguarding. My team are level 2 safeguarding, right? They are trained for that. I'm safeguard lead. So what's my team's job? The same as the schools. If they have a concern, they take it to safeguard lead. What does safeguard lead do? Spring into action? No. Safeguard lead decides, does it go to social services, police or the safeguarding board? Now I'm always going to do a safeguarding board simply because there's a multidisciplinary team there. I would never send it to one place. But that is our safeguarding in this country. That is in practical terms. It's a report and pass system if they pass at all. Like I just said about our school in my state. So we got to get it, protects children from accessing and seeing porn online. Children are being told to research different types of porn. There's a school in Hull. There was another school where a young boy during lockdown, his 14-year-old sister was searching porn. The videos from Scotland's curriculum are all promoting different types of porn. But that's where those videos came from, the images of the videos. I'm being censored on social media because I've been talking about this sex education. But our children need this education to protect them from porn online. That's the government's job. That's the government and big tech. I'm not good at technology. Why do I have to learn how to put locks on my phone?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do I have to learn how to put locks on devices to protect my children? I should be learning how to unlock them, not how to lock them. So that is a farce. They're introducing children to porn. They're saying this is to protect them from seeing porn online. If they can censor me, they can protect our children.
Kim, a couple of weeks ago, we had an MP looking at porn in the chamber in the House of Commons.
As they do regularly. Here we are.
When they're not sleeping.
When they're not sleeping, yeah. Here's another one. Lots of children have 2 mums or 2 dads. I touched on that briefly earlier. LGBT population is 4%. 2 males can't have a child, 2 females can't have a child. It would be stepchildren or obviously IVF or whatever. It's a very, very small proportion of the population to be enforcing this kind of education onto. Again, we can address that by just the children drawing their families in the class. You know, we'll draw your families, talk about your family. Kids do not care. Kids simply do not care. How do we know kids don't care? Well, the health and well-being survey that they did on our children, the results of that tell us that 85% of primary school children in Wales believe every word their teacher says. That's a recent report. 75% of primary school children in Wales feel accepted by their peers. 20% of children are additional needs, and then we got the 4-5% which is LGBT. Those figures add up. Those figures add up, right? So these reasonings are just not good enough. Teachers are trained. Yes, they are trained to teach. They're not trained to be a nurse. They're not trained to be a social worker. They're certainly not criminologists. They're not a sexual crimes team. They are trained to teach. They do the level 2 safeguarding. They might have a degree in music. They might have a degree in history. You know, this is not fair.
Sorry. It's only recently that a lot of teachers are actually taking on the autistic spectrum.
Exactly. And if you look at the training they are doing, so they do the ASD Cymru. Have anyone ever done that? The ASD? You might have seen the certificates on the school walls, okay? It's an online test, ASD Cymru. 20 questions, true or false, and you go back if you get one wrong anyway. You've got to get one of those... Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, I just wanted to add, I'm a teacher by trade, and with, you know, like you say now, with these qualifications, a lot of these happen during inset days. So it's a day, basically, just going to something like this, having someone talk to you a bit, you have a lot of tea and coffee, and it's just between maybe 9 and 3, half 2, you know, to the...
That's it, you're presented with information, aren't you? Well, like this ASD training now, you have to get one question wrong to pass it. It used to say, the question that it was, people with ASD can't learn more than one language. Well, my children are in a Welsh school, so I have to email them and say, you know, And in South Wales, in a Welsh school, there's no additional needs kids there, right? They are sent straight to an English school. So you've got to fight to keep your child there. You know, they've got to really prove their worth. And Welsh teachers down there do think that kids with additional needs can't speak more than one language. So on emailing them, they changed it to complicated languages. Welsh is one of the most complicated languages in the world, so you still got to get that question wrong to actually pass this training. So, and I've got the emails to show you that as well, because I am not parent. I am not parent, it's on to everyone. So we need this education for teen pregnancies and STIs.
They're not even teen.
When you look at the introduction of this sex education, not in the 90s, like it come up to the 2000s, yes, teen pregnancies have decreased. So you could say it's because of sex education. But when you bring it out and you look at the wider lens, all risky behaviours for adolescents have decreased. And that's because they're all online. So the teen pregnancies have come down, the drinking, the drugs, the crime, but the level of crime has gone up. So the amount has come down, but the levels have gone up. So it's far more serious then. You know, so it's a really good thing to say, yeah, this has brought down teenage pregnancies. Well, hang on, did it fetch down the crime as well? No, it did not. It was the introduction of the internet and things like that.
They probably just re-criteria it as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
So lifestyle and statistics improve anything.
That's it, and the thing is, you can manipulate things in your favour anyway. And that's what I always say about, like, when Nia said about being presented with evidence. Being presented with information and investigating are two different things, completely different things. And I believe teachers should be trained. They need to independently research things. That's what I think anyway, you know, and you give them some kind of incentive then for doing that. But until you are independently researching something, you're not really going to learn it. You can take stuff in, you can remember stuff, but you need to really look into it yourself. That's what I believe anyway.
But firstly, they need to want to.
Yeah, they need to want to, yeah. You know, like I've come across some teachers as well that don't believe in ADHD. They don't believe it exists. I've been sat in a parents' evening and this teacher said ADHD doesn't exist. So, you know, you're absolutely right, you've got to want to do it as well.
They are just written down as a naughty child, and it's not that simple.
No, definitely not. In actual fact, the naughty kids seem to be the best in later life.
The thing is, a lot of the time the naughty kids are the ones that are the highly intelligent ones.
Yeah, I was a corridor kid.
They're too adventurous.
I was a corridor kid, I was one of the kids in the corridor. Right, so this education is age appropriate. Well, we have pushed the government on this, not age appropriate, because if they are saying this piece of lesson content here is age appropriate for your child, how do they know? They must have some kind of tool, assessment tool. They got, you know, if they know, there's a way that they can show us how they know. No, there's nothing, okay? There is no assessment tool to define age appropriate in neurotypical and neurodiverse children. It does not exist. If you don't believe me, go on our website. The government have even admitted it through a Freedom of Information request. Developmental appropriate. So this is another term they're using now. They're using developmental appropriate because we've been pushing the age appropriate. But my argument there is developmental appropriate, again, is even harder to define because that's on an individual basis. So how can you define developmental appropriate? Well, this is how the government have done it. They've done it in phases. So, phase 1 goes from age 3, phase 2 goes from age 11, and phase 3 goes from age 11. So, it's no longer age appropriate or developmental appropriate, it's developmental phases which are age groups.
But again, it doesn't account for those on the spectrum.
It doesn't account for anybody. Doesn't, even if you take in one class of children aged 3 to 4, you've got one child who's born in September, another child's birthday ain't until the following August. And when you're that young, a year is a massive developmental age, you know. So it's simply wrong, isn't it? And you might have noticed I skipped past the bit on consent at the end there because it's on this page here. Consent is problematic. You will be told that we're teaching children to consent to holding hands and to hugging Auntie Betty or whatever. It's not about sexual consent. It's absolutely nothing to do with consent, sexual consent. until you look at phase 3. But there is, you know, the importance of consent for safe and healthy relationships, in particular sexual relationships. Consent is a negotiation skill, okay? It's a negotiation tool. We never teach children how to consent. Maybe. No. There's an empowering no. You just teach them an empowering no. When they're older and they get lost in their relationships, they feel they consented in relationships when they're being exploited or groomed. What do we teach them then? The consequence of consent. A lot of time, teenagers or prepubescent children will fall in love with older people, believing they're in a consensual relationship. How do you get through to that child? Well, you explain in these lessons with specialist teams coming into schools how this goes on, how it occurs. The person you think you love right now, or the person you're in love with right now, is in a lot of trouble. And the longer this goes on, the more trouble that person's going to be in. And the more that child loves that person, don't forget, that child loves that person more than it loves you. They're not going to give it up willingly, are they? They need to understand the consequence of. They should never, ever, ever be taught to consent. Because again, like I said earlier on, perpetrators believe children can consent without saying yes. Children can consent just by engaging in conversation. Very dangerous, massively problematic for convictions. It's even incorporated into the Sexual Offences Act 2003. So if that's mentioned in the Sexual Offences Act 2003, why is it in the classroom? Why are teachers allowing in the classroom? They don't know about the Sexual Offences Act. They don't know about perpetrators of abuse. A lot of them are abusers. So we've got a proportion of teachers in school, whether our children then are predators. And abuse in school goes on for longer periods of time. It's usually boys as well. It goes undetected. Sometimes it's never detected. And that's a massive mistake we have made decade after decade after decade after decade in this country.
You know what?
We're nesting.
Sexual assault and rape is the only crime where the victim has to prove.
It's happened.
Yeah.
And very often, where's the evidence? It's historical. We get teachers, we say, what about children with abuse in these lessons? We'll take them out. But 70% of them haven't disclosed until adulthood. But you're going to take them out. You know, the teachers are out of their depth and they need to come together with us on this. We are not the enemy, and this is not a fight. It shouldn't be a fight. If you're working in the school, you care for kids. You should.
Yeah.
We send our kids to school because we care for them. We want them to have an education. The government has created this and the government has caused this. Right? Teachers aren't trained fair, and it's about time now. Teachers admit that. This is a complex field. It's a complex specialist field, and they can't go it alone, you know?
And Kim, even if they did take them out, surely that's sending some kind of message to the other children.
Well, yeah,
they would want to know why.
Yeah, and it's singling people out again, isn't it? And it's also re-victimization.
It is, exactly.
You know, it's such a complex field that we have not got right. Okay? We haven't got, the criminal justice system isn't right. I don't even advise people to go to the police. Honestly, I do a lot of work with the Blair brothers. They took on the Catholic Church. They are survivors, you know. They had success in their case, but they didn't all make it to court, and they would never advise somebody to go through the judicial system. We are a mess. We are an absolute mess, and we're destroying. Do you know what? We walk past people in doorways. They were children once that we let down because we didn't do nothing about what happened the time before. And this is what's happening here now. You know, we're on the cusp of something really serious here. So what has the government's response been to us? They have been absolute pigs, to be honest with you. They really have. We tried our hardest to engage with Kirsty Williams. She didn't even have the decency to email us back herself. She had somebody else to email. I thought she'd made a mistake. I genuinely believed she'd made a mistake. She'd been hoodwinked or whatever. So I needed to know her skills, her qualifications, her employment history. There has to be something there, you know, like what's going on here. She was too good to reply to us, too good. But she did speeches on us in the Senate, calling us liars, paedophile conspiracies. We did a petition. We put all the information in the petition, sent it off. The government removed the documents. We wouldn't have them in there. They removed the children's sexual and reproductive rights. They didn't tell us they removed it. They replaced it with a pro-abortion website, made a mockery of it. All emails prove this, right? All this is going to court. So I made them remove that link. They published a petition with half the information on it. It was a mockery. We had a phone call off them then on the 26th of November, and they said you've got until the 1st of December to get 5,000 signatures, or it was up to 10,000. And so we got half a petition that people are laughing at. They've just doubled the amount of signatures. They'd made a decision weeks ago, but they decided to tell us 4 days before. But we did it. We pushed and we pushed and we pushed and we did it. We had those 5,000. So we got Kirsty Williams then had to respond to us what we'd said in the petition, which really wasn't a lot. So what she said was, what we had said about this education being a global sex education and a danger to children, it was wholly inaccurate and false. What we'd said was wholly inaccurate and false. 2 paragraphs down, she went on to reference it as co-constructed.
That's rich, isn't it?
So then that gave us the opportunity to respond to that. So you've got a limit again, you're only allowed 4 sides of A4, but we got in there 17 pieces of evidence. Like we didn't call Kirsty a liar, we just said, you know, we think the Minister of Education is misunderstanding or she's misleading you, we don't know. They had their little debate, and what they said was, we don't know what's misinformation, we don't know what's not misinformation, but they could have clicked the links and found out. They said they'd put a watch and brief on it, they said they'd get in touch with us. That very night they published a document online, which we didn't know until about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They published a document online saying they're going to launch a campaign against us for misinformation. But on the Senate TV they said they want to watch and brief. They didn't email us. I emailed them. What's going on? No email. Emailed them again, they voted in. No response. A few days later they closed the case. But what they done that night, they published that document online. So with that, then Kirsty Williams, she gives some speeches in the Senate. The children of Wales are banking on her. They're banking on me for this education. She left for the next election. So that's how committed she was to the children of Wales. As I said, we've been campaigning since July 2020. It's been really difficult. There's been COVID, there's been lockdowns, everybody's scared of us, nobody believes us, it's all conspiracy. They tried to get us in court in England, it was kicked out on technicality, nobody wants to touch it, not a single phone call back from a solicitor. But you know what? We found a high-profile barrister, international human rights barrister, Paul Diamond. We contacted him, we submitted our witness statements, and we did get, well, we successfully secured a judicial review. The High Court in London has granted us a judicial review.
Yes.
So that is fantastic. It is fantastic. It's not a fair system. It's not going to be a fair system. If it was a fair system, I wouldn't be here now, because we've already been consulted on this. The first consultation, 80% of us didn't want it. The second time, 68% of us didn't want it, but here we are, going to court. It's going to cost us £100,000 to take this to court. We've got 5 brave parents going in. I think poor parents, because we can't even put people in that's got assets, because the government will come after those assets. The government's been sending us invoices to scare us of £17,000. That's our money. That's our money they're using. Yes. Yeah, but they didn't expect us to get this far, okay? And what the judge said was, the issues raised by the claimants involve serious, complex constitutional matters with potentially very significant consequences for both parents and children. As a High Court judge. But we've got schools saying this is a lie. So the case numbers on the website, feel free to go and type in the case number to the courts. You won't be able to access the file because some of the claimants have applied for anonymity because of their children have been assaulted in the past. So I don't know if you'll ever find out who those claimants are. Maybe they will come forward after the case or whatever and show themselves. But this High Court judge believes that there is something there. Like I said, there's a coalition going in. We've got a religious family, we've got a teaching assistant, we've got a town councillor, we've got myself, and we've got a teenage mother. So, like I said, going in as a coalition, it's going to cost us £100, and it sounds like a lot of money, doesn't it?
Sure.
But it's only 16 pence per child in Wales, that's all it is, right? And if we can do this, we will get our money back, okay? So we are looking at this as an investment. We're not just raising £100,000 to give to the courts to try and fight the judge. We're going to win this, and we're going to fetch that money back. We're going to use that money to properly train the teachers in this country. We are going to rewrite all the teacher training ourselves, and that's what we will do. We will use the money from the court case when we win this to reinvest into our children, and we will make this country the safest country in the world. We can do it, we will do it, we should have done it after the next. I keep saying we're going to win in court, right? But winning in court isn't just winning in court. I've spoken about the Blair brothers who won their case against the Catholic Church. In 2017, they changed 127 child protection laws in this country. Not one of them has been implemented.
Of course not.
So is a winning court really a winning court?
No.
All a winning court means for us is we get the money back. It does nothing to save the children. They can do it again next year, the year after, the year after, the year after. What is going to win this? What is going to get this out for good? And what is going to protect our children? A movement. Awareness. We need to start a movement. So even if we lose in court, if we come out to a sea of people and this cannot go no further, that is a win. That is a win in itself. It's a movement. They won't be able to go anywhere further with it as a fact, you know. If we win in court, that's a double win. But stopping this it won't just save every child in Wales, it'll save every child in the UK. It won't just save every child in the UK. This has never ever been overturned, ever. In 52 countries, never been overturned. When we win, we will make history. And that's what we need to do. We need to raise awareness. A lot of people don't believe this is happening. A lot of people just go in straight to the government website, seeing the RSE code as it is now, no mention of boy, girl, man, woman, male, female, but they think that's okay. The legislation tells you it can change at any time. They've already brought that legislation in without you knowing anyway, okay? You try to inform people about this stuff. If they're not taking it in, you move on. We haven't got time to waste. Because now, this is no longer a preventative campaign. This is damage limitation. And when I say damage limitation, I mean that. Because within 2 years of this education being in Scotland, transgender treatment for 4-year-olds had increased by 80%. 4 years after this education in Scotland, transgender treatment for under 16s has increased by 1,500%. This is not funny, this is no laughing matter. We need to raise awareness. The most important thing is they've removed your parental rights. Just say over your children's education, isn't that sinister enough? Yeah. This is sex. It doesn't matter how much of it they think they're going to teach or they won't teach or what they can promise you. They can't promise every child in our school. Not every child in our school is a parent looking out for them. We need to make sure that no child is left behind, and the only way we can do that is by raising awareness. People say it's not that bad. Not that bad. Isn't a little bit bad enough? It's children we're talking about. We cannot afford to make mistakes. A small window of opportunity, childhood is. And we can destroy a person forever. But that destroyed child doesn't just say one destroyed person, because they're so chaotic, their lives are so messed up, they destroy people around them, people they meet, people they love. You know, this is a mess, and we can fix this. This can be seen as a problem, or we can become the problem, and we can view this as an opportunity. And I want to see this as an opportunity. Yeah, Matthew?
You know, if all that stuff goes into the little kids' head, yeah?
You won't get it back out.
Exactly.
Yeah. It takes, if you look at Julie Weissman's work, it takes 3/10 of a second for information to be in a child's mind and never come out again. We can't take that stuff out. My oldest boy is autistic and ADHD. If my oldest boy had this kind of education, that teacher in that class would have endangered every child in that class because of his repetitiveness, his impulsivity. I've got a 50 grand education to know what I know, to be a better mother to my child. And then a teacher can come along and put every child in that class in danger. My child then end up on some kind of register or in some kind of therapy.
Yeah.
It's wrong. We do need this kind of education. The adults need educating.
Damn
It should never be on a child to safeguard themselves.
Absolutely. You were saying about awareness. I'm sorry if this is on Facebook Live and I've got to stand up. This is absolutely disgusting. Where the hell are the parents? Where the hell are you?
So what we're going to do, guys, like I said, we need to raise money, we need to raise awareness, and that's why we need to fundraise. Not fundraise, we're not fundraising, everybody fundraises. This needs to fundraise, okay? We need to fundraise because there's a massive problem coming down on our children. We need to lift people's spirits, we need to get people's energy high. The people that know about this, there's a lot of people out there depressed as well. There's a lot of people that have got anxiety. I see people crying over there. We can fundraise, okay? We raise the energy, we raise our mood. And when we raise our mood, everyone is giving, everyone's generous, we're all happy. We need to enjoy screwing the government like they've enjoyed screwing us. So we have done some fundraising events which you wouldn't have heard of because the media don't touch us. That lovely gentleman in the middle there, Darren Purcell, he walked 140 miles across the whole of South Wales, from Pontynewydd up to St David in 6 days with his dog Bingo. Bingo has since passed away, but he very much became a bit of a mascot for us. We've had the 24-hour skate-a-thon, we've had a team climb the three peaks in less than 24 hours, so we are trying. We've got like 20 grand, we are trying our absolute best, but we're a small team, and it's the same people sponsoring us, you know. But like I keep saying, like some people say, oh, we see posts in it, I'm sorry, I can only give a fiver. Do you only give a fiver? Do you realise how many children are within that fiver? There's a lot, okay, and that's what we look at. We don't look at the big agenda, we don't look at the big overall cost, we break it down. It started with one small group of people, it has to end with one small group of people. Yes, it's £100,000, but it's only 16 pence per child. You've got 6 kids and a quid. That's the way it is. We bring it down, we make it small, we make it manageable, and we will do this. We will absolutely do it, we've got no other choice. So I don't know if anyone has any questions. Like I only know what I know, but I'm here for you to rip into me because I've got nothing to hide. I'm here as a mother for my children. I just want the truth. I want to get to the bottom of everything. I want everyone to be cared for, looked after, included, you know, celebrated. But you know what? This, I believe, is wrong. And if you think I am wrong, this is your opportunity to address that now. Because, like I said, all I'm out for is the truth. And we should be having these conversations. And if I'm not prepared to have these conversations with you, then who am I to stand and expect you to look into stuff I've spoken about? You know, we've got to do this for the children, yes?
I don't think you're wrong. But what about the teachers' unions? Are no teachers' unions standing up and saying you shouldn't be having to do this?
Well, this is it. We have heard on the grapevine, now we've heard from 2 pretty good sources that teachers are kicking off within the union, but nothing's come outside of the union.
Yeah.
But there is something. So if there's any teachers out there, this is really important. If you are a teacher, you don't want to teach this, right? We've got a document coming for you on the first day of term next year. And it's going to shut this entire thing down. It's going to shut this entire thing down because the government made a mistake in the legislation. They made a massive mistake. They want you lot to think you've lost a parental opt-out. They want the schools to enforce the no parental opt-out. They've made a little bit of a mistake in the primary legislation. It doesn't add up, right? So we've essentially got a notice, a Section 9 notice, which the parents out there can give to their schools. It places responsibility on the head teacher. If your child is taught this education, that teacher's broken the law. So there will be teachers out there who's going to be glad of this, because they're not going to want to teach it, and it's going to become a tool for them. So our mission is to get at least 22 of that parent in each local authority. It'd be great if we could get 1,500 for each school. But this is what we're going to do now moving forward. There are things we can do as well as the court thing. There are, like, the deadline for this is September, okay? So it starts September, like I said, the deadline for it starts September, so they should already be doing it now. You can't go into school and then have, you can't start at the deadline, can you? So we will be giving these documents, and we are hoping it's never ever been used before as an action. It's the first time it's going to be used. The reason why we haven't issued it yet is because we don't want to give them 6 weeks to sort it out. Okay? When those children go in September, because the court dates they are trying to give us is past September, we're trying to fight that. We can't afford to allow this to go ahead. So these notices will be there for the first day of term, and what it should do in practical terms is tie everyone's hands up. So that's a little trump card we've got up our sleeves. It's a loophole, but we don't want to give it to people too soon because we don't want them to loop the loop, do we?
So if you're, I mean, I'm lucky my kids are well grown up now, but so if you're a parent and you could use that, you approach teachers with that.
Yes, yeah.
On your behalf, really.
Yeah, and it's all going to be written up perfect for you. The legal team are looking over it. It goes back to the 1996 Act, Section 9 of the 1996 Act. What it's actually done is they've removed your parental opt-out, but it says in England. So essentially it doesn't apply to us in Wales because the words in England are in the primary legislation. So although they've attempted to remove the parental opt-out, we could not go into court against the Curriculum and Assessment Act because the judge would say, hang on a minute, what are you talking about? It's there in the 1986 Act. So we've had to go in with the two policies as well, because the policies are telling us we've lost our parental opt-out, but the legislation doesn't add up. And with this being a whole school approach, so what that means is, it's in every single lesson across the curriculum, not a standalone lesson. This will absolutely rip it apart. It'll shake it at the core. They've tangled us up in there, but they've also tangled themselves too. So that's quite a good thing, I think.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And Kim, can I just ask, regardless of what happens with this court case now, do you, as a criminologist, foresee many court cases happening against teachers in years to come?
Well,
I would being perpetrated.
Well, this is it. Convictions are less than 1% anyway. This is a hidden crime, and we do have problems in institutional abuse. But the way we are going with educating people, like so my son, for instance, he does know the difference between sex abuse, contact and non-contact sex abuse. So even being in the classroom, if a teacher tried to show him something, he would be able to go to the sexual crime scene and articulate that. They would have to get a model of sexual offences to put against what he says, and they're going to match up. So it's going to be very difficult, even though the police do say they can't get involved in health, education and politics. Crimes are being committed, Joan. So that is something that I will be pushing for. There does need to be examples. Whether these teachers are doing stuff because the documents tell them to or not, it's still a crime. It's still affecting a child. Who defines this as education? So do I see any court cases against teachers? Yeah. I bloody well hope so. Yeah, I do. Yeah. Because you know what? Nobody at the top has ever changed anything at the top. And if it takes us little ants at the bottom to make examples of ants at the bottom, that's what we have to do, I'm afraid. Yeah. So I personally will be supporting that, yeah.
And just to comment, Nicola Sturgeon, have you ever seen Nicola Sturgeon photographed with anyone that is trying to get justice for historical sexual abuse, institutional abuse?
Have I seen a photograph with them?
Yes, with people that are fighting for justice.
I haven't
over sexual
personally,
abuse?
no, I haven't, no, but what I know people who are fighting her for historical sex abuse, but I've never seen her photographed
No.
of that, no.
No, you've never seen Sandy, for example.
No, I don't
Yeah.
know Sandy,
Well,
I've seen
have you
her.
ever seen Nicola Sturgeon being photographed, flanked by two people from it's an order of Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence.
Yeah, they've got links to PI as well, so Paedophile
Yeah.
Information Exchange was a political party of the 80s. And you can look at their videos now, they all dispersed, a lot of them went to the Labour Party, a lot of them were in SNP as well, and they seem to be pretty much a driving force behind this education. And when we are talking about PI policies, so when you look at PI policies and you look at this education, they are the same. We are then talking as paedophile conspiracies. But they won't say that to our face, they just try to say it to the public to whitewash it.
Kim, do you mind if I say something?
Of course not, there you go.
Because I don't think I need that, I've got a loud voice. So my name's Louise Hughes, I'm a Gwynedd County councillor. Are any of you local Gwynedd parents?
Yes.
We need more of these Gwynedd parents. So I've been a councillor since 2008, I'm a mum, I'm also a youth leader, I'm an army cadet instructor. Teenagers drive you mad, don't they? But they're human sub-adults. I only found out about RSE by accident a couple of weeks ago on Facebook. Whoa! I went down to Newport, 3.5-hour drive there, 3.5-hour drive back, met Kim. This woman is a force of nature. I didn't know, and we've got another county councillor there, Rob Triggs from Barmouth, we've got Beth Lawton from Bryn Creek near Towin. Where's everyone else? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
So, we had a presentation from the Education Department on Zoom, load of councillors. We were talking about the importance of the Welsh language, read them in siarad Cymraeg yn rhugl anffodus, mae drwg gen ni. It's very important, right? Talked about Welsh culture, Welsh history, very important. They talked about rolling out the extended school meals plan, school transport, touched briefly on safeguarding. Any questions? Silence. Me, big gob. Yes, I've got a question. What's RSE? Do any of you know about it? Because I didn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've done a lot of research, and I apologise if I'm going to offend you. I'm going to use some graphic language that was used in one of the lessons in Scotland for 9-year-olds, talking about wet, slippery vaginas and hard, erect penises.
Yeah.
This is to 9-year-olds.
Yeah.
Nobody batted an eyelid. I sent an email to the head of education. He didn't answer me. His second in command did. I said I have massive concerns that our children in Gwynedd schools are going to be given content they haven't got the maturity to understand or comprehend what's going on, and that gives me huge cause for concern. So Beth hopefully has got this onto the scrutiny, because we are told time and time again by the officers in Gwynedd Council that we have a role as corporate parents.
Yeah.
We're school governors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not about condemning anyone's sexuality.
Yeah.
Adults can do what they want in the privacy of their own home, consenting adults.
Yeah.
Fill your boots.
Yeah.
It's not about adults. This is about protecting and safeguarding our children from inappropriate material.
Yeah.
Why didn't I know? I'm a counsellor, I'm a school governor. How the hell did I not know? I didn't know there was a consultation. Did you? Did any of you know there was a consultation on this? Because they slipped it in under COVID.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
appalling.
Yeah.
I think, you know, and I'm a reasonably open-minded person, I think it's tantamount to government-sponsored paedophilia.
Yes.
Yes. And I know that sticking my head above the parapet, I'm going to make myself a target.
Yeah.
I'm going to raise it at full
Well,
council.
well,
Yeah.
right then.
I'm going to get a recorded vote, so all of you will know who approves of this.
Yeah.
Because I don't.
Yeah.
I'm an independent. What's happened to common decency?
Yes.
What's
That's
happened to
something
common
that
sense?
councils-
Why don't we let our children just be children?
Yes.
For goodness sake!
Yes.
I am an elected pain in the arse, and I will make sure that parents' voices are heard,
Yeah.
because parents are important. Whether it's gay, I don't know, straight, bi. A parent is a parent looking out for the best interest of their child, right?
Yeah.
Accepted? That's what is important. Parents have the right to know what their children are being taught in schools. And they also have the right to take their kids out of those classes.
Okay. She contacted school. Which was it? Go in.
Right, I'm not going to name the school, but
Yeah.
there was a particular head teacher that I spoke to on the phone, and I was discussing the RSE, and I was speaking to her from the heart, and I was basically saying, you know, because this is working together. I'm not having a go at you. I just want to, you know, talk about this. Was when I was looking for the venue for the one we had last night.
Yeah.
The council sabotaged the one in Scotland and get me, by the way. Anyway, so we were talking about models, and she was saying, agreeing with me, that's morally wrong. And then I thought she was on the same level as me, and then she turned around and she said, but you have to understand that we, as teachers, we have to do what the law tells us to do.
Rubbish!
And I was like, excuse me, where does common law and do no harm and duty of care come into this? And literally, okay, all of a sudden she didn't know what to say.
Yeah, but the council had phoned the school, so that they didn't leave a paper trail, because the school were on board. So we're dealing with, like, this is coming from the top, and it's not coming from the council, it's coming from the United Nations, who are an unelected body.
That's
so
how much.
the World Health
That's how much of a
Organization.
threat. That's how much of a threat we are.
Coming from there.
Yeah, so
That's
it's,
because
this
we're
is
the
all
threat.
an unelected body.
It's like you said you wouldn't name the school, but this is the problem. We should be naming the
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I emailed every single school on Anglesey. Because I'd done the invites, you know, you've seen the invites for I've done one, the original one for Llangefni. I'd hired the hall there, no problems at all, know the staff, that's where my kids went to school. And I told them it was about the RSE, gave them the rough idea. Yeah, you know, 20 quid, ideal. Anyway, I had a phone call on the Monday morning saying that the hall wasn't available. Then I was informed one way that the council had phoned that morning every single school on Anglesey to tell them to put on hold sending the invites out to children. There was no paper trail. It was all. How long did it take them to phone all of them? Say, for example, now, if I had booked that hall for a disco, and I'd invited all of you to my party, okay, would the council have phoned all of you to say, oh, party's cancelled, you know, don't send any more invites out? Would they have done that? Would they have done my work for me?
No.
For a hall that I was hiding for £20. You know, but they sabotaged that in a very sneaky way. In a very sneaky way. And in a way, like I say, there's no paper trail.
No
evidence
evidence.
to it.
Indicative of corrupt,
Yeah.
immoral behaviour.
Yeah. But at the same time as well, I've spoken to other professionals, and like they've advised me, you know, saying, because I was highly disappointed last night that even, because I sent the emails out again then to the schools for the Holyhead one, I knew that they wouldn't be able to share with parents, but I thought, well, the heads are going to see them anyway, at least they can come. But apparently they can't be seen to be coming into anything like this because it would be their job's work. They would be seen as supporting something like this. But the thing is, they haven't even looked into it properly. That's the thing. They haven't looked into it properly. Because, you know, when you're in work, like Matthew says, occupation keeps you occupied. So they're busy marking this, that, and the other. Teachers I've spoken to, that they briefly we're just going to do the bare minimum or whatever. There is one head teacher who has assured me that he will by no means be doing this, and but he's an independent run school and he doesn't come under the council, so he's got more leeway to do as, you know, do it his way. But like he said, if the government pushes on him to get 6 or 7-year-olds to label a vagina, like he said, I will be demanding of them that they show the evidence and the research of how 6 to 7-year-olds actually benefit from this, which they won't be able to do. So he's, you know, he's quite old school and he's strong-willed. So I've got faith in him. But as for the rest of them, I'm very disappointed.
Well, anyone who gets £50 from the council at all for anything, you've got to do it.
So Leah, last night, how many teachers actually turned up?
Teachers, no, there was one social worker, there was one, I can't remember it, there was a nurse there, there was one that used to work with disabled children, she's currently not working, and there was one, and I can't remember her job title, but she specialises in children with needs, and you know, oh wow, she's fascinating. You need to have a chat with her, Kim. She puts children into these groups. So like she says, the children that have got something different about them, say if they're dyslexic, if they've got ADHD or anything like this, they're going to be feeling different to the other children, like they don't quite fit in. So if they're going to be pushed on this, you know, with 100 genders, whatever, they're going to think, oh, hang on, oh, maybe that's where I fit in. Then we've got the other two, so they're most at risk of that, the children that are actually feeling out of place in the first place. Then you've got the other, and teachers aren't equipped for this. No. And then you've got the other two sets of children then, which are what she called council house children or bungalow children.
I love the labelling.
So the council house children, she said, she's not as concerned about them because there's more of a community and they snitch on each other and everything. So if someone's touching someone inappropriately, you know, they're not going to do it the second time because everyone's talking. But the ones that are most at risk of being groomed are what you'd class as the nice children, the ones that have been kept nice and safe in a bubble by mum and dad, they're kept at home, they do as they're told, they listen to adults and they do as they're told and they keep quiet. They're the ones that are most at risk of being groomed. And that was just, wow, you know, she's amazing. And she was in Holyhead last night, she is fantastic.
Well, there was one down in South Wales, there were one there when Sarah and Rob went, you know, they've had RSE meetings, so they went to theirs, they know full well what's going on, the three of them, so they thought, well, let her speak, and then we'll say. So first of all, they said, well, people else are taking them out from the court, and she said, oh, no, they're not. So Rob, who was there, lost his temper, started calling her a liar. Why are you lying to these parents, or whatever. But she said, and this is straight from the head teacher's mouth, no, what we're doing is, we're dripping the information into them so it becomes normalised.
Yeah,
normalised.
What about
that's what you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah,
exactly. These teachers have got children, and you'd think.
Common sense is it, as far as I'm concerned.
Most of their children are probably out there anyway. You know,
when you think about it as well, teachers are equivalent to those little good kids that grew up and do as they're told. So basically they're adults now and they're still ticking the boxes, oh, I have to do this and it has to be this way, and I'm ticking all the boxes. So that's what they're not thinking for themselves and they're not going outside the box and doing their own research.
And that's how they've been indoctrinated to think.
Yeah, exactly.
I've only recently discovered, right? through 2 years' worth of scrutiny and abuse under Wrexham Social Services, I did a safeguarding course. Who's responsible for safeguarding our children? Everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone. Where the hell is that? Where is that?
It takes a village to raise a child, it's going to take a country to keep them safe, but it's
Yeah.
going to take an entire kingdom
Where
to
the
settle
hell
on
are
this,
parents?
and that's
Where
the
are
kingdom.
parents for here tonight? Where are they?
Good question. They don't know about it.
There are some here.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is, though, kids, yeah, by the time you're 4 years old, you know, every beat that you've heard, you've internalised it. Whether you know it or not, musically you have, yeah? And it's the same with all the information that goes into your brain, especially when you're a kid, because up to the age of 6, it's on like a gamma wave, yeah? Kids are different as well. Yeah, and then when you're taking this stuff in at an early age, yeah, then if you're sexually deviant like that, if there is no right, if it's all word, yeah, then that will spin on to being crime or, you know, just being deviant in the community. Yeah, exactly. And that's what generations that are going to grow up with. It's just so wrong on so many levels.
And then the thing as well, we've got kids.
Yeah.
This is something to me knowing about this now. I went home last night from home night when I was refleeting, and my kids, one's 24, the other's 18, and we were just talking in the kitchen. My 18-year-old turned around talking about those questionnaires and said, oh yeah, we've done those in school, asking when we had sex or whatever. I was like, oh, what? You didn't tell me. Oh yeah, it's loads of random questions. It was one question asking about if they'd had sex. The next question was asking if they've got a dishwasher. The following question if they've got 2 parents. So that's, they're doing these questionnaires all jumbled up.
It's getting a bit chaotic, so I don't know.
She turned around and said, oh yeah, I remember doing those. Now, my 24-year-old was raised in a council estate, so she's, got more, let me say, she can stick up for herself more. And she turned around, oh yeah, me and my mate, we just sat every single answer, basically, so whatever statistics they got from that was absolutely wrong. And my daughter, by the way, doing those similarities, she's not stupid, she's qualified as a master's now, so she's
Right, I'm going to switch off now. It's getting a bit chaotic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think.
I know.
I'm going to switch it off.
Yeah. I was talking to this guy about